Everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is June 24th, 2026, and today we're gonna talk about one guy and one guy only, one topic and one topic only. Ooh. That topic is not my cough, I promise. That topic is Julian Alvarez, because, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of things have happened between today and yesterday since Julian Alvarez announced that he wants to leave that trash club, Atletico Madrid. If you don't know Spanish, patético, of course, is pathetic. But anyways, let's start with the podcast because we have a lot to discuss. Here we go. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Bo. It is so good to be here. Oh my God, I missed being home. I missed having my studio. And most importantly, I missed doing the podcast with you guys because, as I always say, it is my favorite part of this channel because I get to sit here, I get to read your comments, I get to react to them live, and that just brings me closer to you guys. No homo. I say, of course, that in the most... maybe this is just my point of view. I don't know. But I feel like when I get to talk to you guys, even though it is through a comment section, even though it is through the screen and we're not in person, but, you know, when I do these lives, I do feel like we're all just hanging out in one big living room, having some beers, maybe not if you don't drink, that's okay as well. Watching TV, talking about Barca, talking about football. I love podcast days, and it was killing me that I wasn't able to do this for the past 2 weeks. But the important thing is I'm back, I'm home, I'm here, I'm ready to deliver Barcelona news to you. And of course, I'm ready to read your comments and react to them live. So start filling out the chat section so we can get this going. Now, for those of you who will be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description, the chapters in the timeline, in case you do want to skip through the discussion. Even though I recommend against it because the discussion is the best part. I get to hear what you guys think. And, of course, if you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys, merchandise, make sure to hit the Goal Kits, Kickback, Fanatic. No Kickback. Kickback sucks. Just Goal Kits or... No, sorry. Goal Kit sucks. Kickback or Fanatics. Kickback for soccer gear or football gear. And then, of course, Fanatics for any other sports gear. And then, of course, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment. All these very, very important because they help the channel continue to grow. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. As I mentioned in the intro, today we're going to be talking about one person and one person only, Julian Alvarez, because ever since he dropped that bombshell in his interview talking about he wanted to leave Atletico Madrid, Patético Madrid, a lot has happened. Yesterday, I wasn't able to make any videos because yesterday I left Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I flew back to the U.S. on an incredibly long flight. Well, 2 flights. By the way, you don't realize how far Argentina is, how far south they are, until you actually go there. It was my 3rd time there, and every time I forget how far they are until I actually hop on that plane, and I'm like, wow, you guys are really far. But anyways, I was in Argentina for 2 weeks. I had an incredible time. It was winter, of course, down there. So it is nice to come back to summer, to some sunlight, even though I hate the heat. I hate the heat, don't get me wrong. But, of course, New York winters are brutal, and up to until I left to Buenos Aires, it was still cold. I go to Buenos Aires, it was also cold. Not too crazy cold, but nonetheless cold. And now I come back. The weather is beautiful. The sun is out. It's amazing. But anyways, I'm super exhausted. If I start saying stupid things more than usual, because I always say stupid things, 90% of the things I say are stupid things. So if I start, I don't know, 95% or 100% stupid things, it's because I'm tired. So I do apologize ahead of time. I haven't slept in 2 days. I left Argentina yesterday at 1 p.m. Head to the airport. My flight left at 5 p.m. I flew for 6.5 hours to Colombia, Bogota, Colombia, landed there at night. I got to watch the Colombia match at the airport. The whole airport was watching the Colombia match. It was an amazing experience. When Colombia scored, the whole airport just erupted, went crazy, like, ah! the funny thing is, everybody was watching it on their cell phone. So when you're streaming on your cell phone, a lot of times your stream is delayed, right? So there were different groups of people watching the match in different parts of the airport, and they're all watching it at different times. Their streams are delayed by a different amount of seconds. So I heard the same goal being celebrated 4 times. Like I heard a group of people like, let's go. And then like 2 seconds later, another group somewhere else in the airport was like, and then like 3 seconds later, another group, like 4 times I heard it. Anyways, it was an amazing experience. My flight was delayed. Left at midnight. I left midnight out of Bogota, landed in New York City at 6 a.m. By the time I went through immigration, through the airport, got my bags, got home. I got home at 8:30 a.m. And at 9 a.m., I started work. And I worked from 9 to 6, went and picked up my dog, watched the Brazil match. By the way, man, this Brazil, I don't know. Yeah, they won today. Yeah, they're first in the group. Yeah, they're through the next round, but I'm sorry. They don't inspire any confidence. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just spoiled. I grew up with 2002 Brazil, El Fenomeno, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Rivaldo, and to go see that group to this group, it doesn't inspire any confidence. This is not the Jogo Bonito I grew up with. These are not the Pepsi commercials we used to watch but in the early 2000s. Maybe I'm showing my age here for you youngsters. Just go and look up the Pepsi commercials from the early 2000s. Those were amazing commercials, the Brazilian squad, Zinedine Zidane, Beckham, etc., etc. But anyways, this Brazil doesn't inspire any confidence in me, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the news. I know I've been blabbering for the last 3-4 minutes, and I haven't said a single word about what we're here to talk about, which is, of course, Julian Alvarez. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I shared with you the other day the news, I think this was a Monday, of Julian Alvarez dropping a bombshell right after Argentina beat Austria. Again, thanks to Leo Messi. What are we watching right now? A 39-year-old carrying an entire nation on his back. He scores a hat trick against Algeria. He scores a double against Austria. 5 goals in 2 matches. 39 years old. We were talking about how, Messi and Penaldo shared the stage for 15 years, and now it was time for them to, get off the stage and cede it to the next generation, Mbappe, Haaland, whomever. And here's Messi telling the youngsters, I ain't going nowhere. 5 goals in 2 matches. But anyways, after Argentina beat Austria, of course, Julian Alvarez dropped that huge bombshell saying, "That's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker." Just kidding, that's Tupac. But Julian Alvarez said that the best thing is a transfer. The best thing for everyone is a transfer, that he wanted to fulfill his dream. Now, of course, he didn't actually say he wants to go to Barca, but we all know that Julian Alvarez's dream is to go to Barca. And with that, Julian Alvarez dropped a huge bomb because, of course, there's no going back from this, right? He is out straight up saying, I don't want to go to Atletico. He might not have said, I want to go to Barca, but he's for sure saying, I don't want to be at Atletico. In other words, I'd rather be at the million other clubs that exist in the world than Atletico, right? Because he didn't say he wants to go to Barca, even though we know his dream is Barca. But he's saying, I don't want to be at Atletico. I want to transfer. So boom. That, of course, rattled the whole world because now Atletico couldn't play stupid, right? Julian sat down with Atletico, told them, hey, your project is garbage. It's been garbage for the last 100 years. I want to leave. I want to join Barca. Cerezo tells Julian, don't worry. I promise you we're going to let you go, but of course we're going to want to get paid for it. And then whether they do, instead of honoring their promise, like a serious club, because of course they're not. They're a joke of a club. They're a small, tiny club. What do? They post all those tweets mocking Barca's interested in him. They reach an agreement with Arsenal. They reach an agreement with PSG. Then they do that whole ploy with, Real Madrid made a 150 million euro offer. And they didn't even believe it themselves. So, of course, Julian sees all this. Is like, bro, I sat down with you in private. I had a conversation, adult to adult, man to man, told you what I wanted. You promised me you're going to make that happen. And instead, you go out there and you make yourself look stupid and you make yourself, appear like the circus that you truly are. So, of course, it left him no other option but to come out and say, I want to leave. Now, of course, this gesture was very appreciated by Barcelona. This is what Barcelona were waiting for, right? Because Barcelona had made an offer to Atletico, 90 million plus 10 in variables. It had gone completely ignored, not even rejected, completely ignored. So Barca were like, look, bro, there's not much more we could do. You need to come out and say something. And well, Julian did. And Barcelona are very thankful for this because, of course, there's no coming back from this. You know, Julian, having said that, has angered everybody. He's angered all Atletico fans. He's angered the Atletico leadership. So they're not going to want to see him wearing the Atletico shirt. But of course, since then, a lot has happened. And well, the first thing that happened was that Atletico have now threatened to file a complaint with FIFA. I know a lot of you mentioned that in the comment section when we talked about Julian's words. You're like, Mo, Atletico are threatening a complaint. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm here to discuss that complaint because guess what? FIFA can do nothing about this. That's pretty much it. Why can't FIFA do anything if Atletico do file a complaint with FIFA for Julian Alvarez? Well, it's because they have no jurisdiction. Now, before we talk about jurisdiction, we got to talk about why Atletico are threatening to file a complaint with FIFA. Well, under the rules, you cannot negotiate with a player until it's the final 6 months of his contract. Right? If a player's contract expires in the summer of 2027, starting in January of 2027, you can negotiate with him directly without breaking the rules. If you negotiate with a player at any point before that, you are breaking the rules and you're exposing yourselves to fines and fees. Unless the player informs the club and gets their permission in writing. So in other words, you go to the club and say, hey, I want to leave. You guys suck. Is it okay if I negotiate with these other clubs? And the club that you belong to says, yeah, you can. We hate you too. Your breath stinks. Here's in writing. Go negotiate with whoever you want. If you get that club's permission in writing, you can negotiate with whomever you want. So Atletico are saying that Barcelona broke the rules, that they negotiated directly with Julian without obtaining the blessing or the permission from Atletico Madrid. So they're threatening to file a complaint with FIFA. Now, should we be worried that Atletico Madrid are threatening to file a complaint with FIFA? The answer is no. Why? Because FIFA has no jurisdiction. FIFA would get involved if this was an international transfer. In other words, if Barcelona were signing Julian from Manchester City, and they negotiated with Julian while he was at Manchester City without Manchester City's permission, then FIFA would get involved. Or if Barcelona were negotiating with Julian while he was at River Plate in Argentina, then FIFA would get involved. But the accusation here is that Barcelona, a Spanish club, was negotiating with Julian while he was the property of another Spanish club. So who truly has jurisdiction here is not FIFA. It's the Royal Spanish Football Federation, because this is a dispute between two Spanish clubs. So FIFA has no jurisdiction here. Now, if you might think, Mo, are Atletico's lawyers dumb? No, they're not dumb. They're pretty much aware of it. Why are they aware of it? Well, first of all, it should be your job as a lawyer to know the rules or research them. But even if it wasn't, well, Atletico knows this because they already went through this. When Barcelona signed Antoine Griezmann, Atletico Madrid, being the cry club that they are, the small, tiny, small dick energy club that they are, they ran to FIFA and complained and say, hey, Barcelona, we're negotiating with Griezmann without our approval. And even though Atletico did prove to FIFA that, yes, indeed, there were negotiations, they submitted emails, they submitted documents that showed that Barca did indeed negotiate with Griezmann while he still had a contract. FIFA said, sorry, bros, I have no jurisdiction here, and they fined Barcelona 300 euros. Not 300,000, 300 euros, which to Barcelona, obviously, I mean, that's, I don't know, their stick of gum budget for like a week. I don't know, maybe even less. So Atletico know this. They know that FIFA has no jurisdiction here. They know it because the rules state so, and they know it because they've already went through this. So why is Atletico Madrid doing this? Why are they threatening a complaint with FIFA? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the same reason that demented Florentino Perez submitted a dossier to UEFA, proving once and for all that Barcelona bribed referees. It's nothing more than posturing, right? Florentino Perez knows that UEFA has no jurisdiction to punish Barcelona over the Negrita case because 3 years have passed. Plus, they don't have jurisdiction because this is an accusation that Barcelona, a Spanish club, bribed Spanish referees to influence La Liga, a Spanish competition. So the ones who have jurisdiction there are La Liga and the Royal Spanish Football Federation. So Florentino knows that UEFA has no jurisdiction, and even if they did, the statute of limitation have already expired because it has to be 3 years or less. And instead of going to the courts, the Spanish courts, the only body here that have jurisdiction, because La Liga doesn't have jurisdiction either because the statute of limitation has also expired. So instead of going to the courts where there's an active investigation and the courts are the only ones who can punish Barcelona, Florentino Perez went to UEFA. Why? Because they know there's nothing there. There's nothing in the dossier. The courts have been investigating Barcelona for over 3.5 years and they haven't found anything. They're the only ones who can punish Barca. And why wouldn't Florentino submit evidence that the courts haven't found in 3.5 years to the courts, who are the only ones who can punish Barca? Why hasn't Florentino done that? Because there's nothing in that dossier. That dossier is toilet paper. That dossier is worth nothing. And that's why he submitted to UEFA, knowing that it's worth nothing, because all he's doing is trying to distract Madridistas from his failures, from the fact that they just ended 2 seasons in a row trophyless, that the club is in debt, that they have no cash or liquidity, that their stadium is a total mess. So by doing that, Florentino Perez distracted Madridistas, which, by the way, it worked like a charm, because instead of Madridistas saying, wow, Florentino Perez is doing horrible, they're all like, yeah, look at Florentino Perez defending Madrid. Woo, we have a great president because they're fucking retarded. Well, Atletico Madrid are following the same exact playbook. And that is to distract their own fans. Because they know, internally they know, that they cannot keep Julián. Julián doesn't want to be there. He doesn't believe in the project. He has problems with Simeone. Simeone doesn't want him on the team either. They know they can't keep him. They know eventually they're going to have to sit down and negotiate for him. But before they do that, they have to put on a show. They have to put on a show for their, well, idiot fans who are also buying into this crap, just like Madridistas bought into Florentino's crap. So they can say, wow, look at Atletico's president and CEO. They're defending our club. They're standing up to Barcelona, the villains. How dare they want to sign a player during the transfer market? Oh, wow, amazing. Look at them, right? So they get a pat in the back, and then eventually they're going to have to let go of Julián. Which, by the way, you know how Atletico got Julián in the first place? They negotiated with him without the permission of Manchester City. Did Manchester City complain to FIFA? No. Why? Because Manchester City, unlike Atletico Madrid, are not a small club with tiny dick energy. They understand something that every single club around the world understands. That's how football works. Players go, players come, players go. You sign players, you sell players. You sign players, you sell players. You have a player, someone comes, takes him away. You go to another club, you take away their player. It's how it works. It's called the fucking transfer market. Transfer being the key word. But of course, Atletico Madrid know this. But they have to put on a show for their retarded fans, who are, of course, eating it up with a big spoon, like, ooh, look at Cerezo, amazing, standing up to Barcelona. I mean, there's a reason why they also live in Madrid, because apparently they're just as stupid as Madridistas. All right, that is all for the first segment. Let's do the comment section, and then we are going to talk about Barcelona's new offer, because Barca are preparing a new offer after Julian Alvarez dropped that bombshell and said, boo, I want to leave this idiotic club called Atletico Madrid. Java Dahad says it makes no sense how Penaldo fans thinks he's the GOAT. What Messi's doing is something no one will do again. He scores, creates the chances, and assists while Penaldo and his teammates do all the work. By the way, did you guys see Penaldo's reaction to the reporter who asked him about Messi? He was like, hey, he's like sitting there and he says, all right, you. And then the reporter starts speaking in Spanish. Messi scored. He turns around. He's like, okay, you go. Kind of like F that reporter. He's talking about Messi. I don't want to even hear the question. It's crazy. It's crazy. A 41-year-old man, a grown-ass man, getting salty because someone is asking him about Messi. And I know Ronaldo fans are going to say, well, Mo, why would he ask him about Messi? He just scored 2 goals against Uzbekistan. I'm like, well, Ronaldo fans, let me explain something to you. Sports are based on competition. Athletes competing against athletes. So, of course, they're going to ask Penaldo, an athlete, who's competing against someone like Messi, another athlete, about what he thinks about Messi scoring 5 goals. So, if you don't want to be asked questions about other athletes who are competing against you and who you are competing against them, then don't be a fucking athlete. Second of all, Penaldo, my friend, you put yourself in this position because Messi is considered the greatest ever by the people. You, my friend, self-anointed yourself the greatest ever. You're the one who came up time and time again in interviews, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. Okay, fine. So if you want to self-anoint yourself as the greatest, please explain to me, why is Messi doing greater than you if you're the greatest? So again, if you don't want to be asked those kind of questions, then maybe don't self-anoint yourself as the greatest. Just a thought. So it's crazy that a 41-year-old, a grown-ass fucking man with a wife and kids, acts like a 5-year-old kid throwing a tantrum when he's asked about Messi. And by the way, that could have easily been an opportunity for him to gain more sympathy from the fans, to gain more fans. He could have let the reporter ask the question, said, yeah, of course, Messi, he's one of the greatest players ever. What he's doing is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? People would have said, wow, man, Penaldo just scored a double against Uzbekistan, and look at him. He's being humble, talking about Messi and his greatness. Like, bro, you could have easily turned that moment into a great moment for you. You could have spun that. But at 41 years old, this guy is still acting like this egomaniac 5-year-old kid who cannot handle that someone is better than him, which is a shame because he still is one of the greatest footballers in history. So what's up with the small dick energy, man? What is up with that? Anyways, let's see. Bisca Michael says, what's up, Mo? Do you think Deco should pull up the Atletico Madrid and offer them 110 instead? I'm afraid without more sufficient exits like Ferran, Kunde, or Casado, we can't make our money back. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the new offer that Barcelona are preparing now that Julián, dropped that bombshell. But as far as money, though, the reason, one of the many reasons why Barcelona can make a huge investment like that, aside from the fact that obviously Barcelona's finances are improving, right? The Spotify Camp Nou is generating a crap load of money, even though it's not even fully open. Merchandising has skyrocketed ever since Barcelona started selling stuff online. Before, you can only buy things online if you lived in Europe. If you were in the rest of the world, you were screwed, right? Now, any parts of the world, you can buy things online. So merchandising is through the roof. Barcelona breaking records with their merchandise sales. Obviously, Barcelona won La Liga and the Spanish Super Cup. They get money from the prize, but they also get money from TV rights. Also, when you win, people are more likely to go to the stadium, more likely to buy merchandise, more sponsors are signing with Barca. So overall, Barca are making more and more money with every single day. This is what allows them to make this huge spending, like 80 million on Gordon, and now the offer that I'm about to tell you for Julián. But another reason why Barca can do these things, because most signings are not paid cash up front. I want to say probably like 99.9% of signings are not paid cash up front. So if Barcelona, let's say, agree to 110 million euro like you're suggesting, it doesn't mean Barcelona going to tomorrow write a check to Atletico Madrid and say, here's 110. It's going to be 5 years or 10 years. I pay you 11 million euros every year for the next 10 years. That's usually how these deals are worked. And if not, work directly with the club that you're dealing with, payment plan. A lot of times they take out a loan and they pay that club cash in loan, and then they pay the loan back in quotas. So it's never, when you hear a club sign this player for 90, 100, 80, it's never like, here's boom, bags of cash. It's always an installment plan. Always. I mean, that's just how the corporate world works. Companies never make big purchases cash. Even if they have it, even if they have the cash on hand, they don't do it, because what you're doing is you're blowing your cash reserve. So it's always payment plans, or taking out loans and then paying the loan in a payment plan. So that's how. Let's see. Keba says, what's up, Mo? Greetings from the Gambia. What up? My greetings to everybody in the Gambia and the whole African continent. A lot of people follow the channel from the African continent, by the way. Thank you guys for your support. And Kid says, I can't wait to see Juli at Barcelona. It's a dream come true for me and him. All right. I like the spirits. The Rebel Pilot says, is it true that Julián already bought 2 homes in Barcelona? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Don't worry. And Nielsen says, hi, Mo. Nice to have you back, brother. I think you're going to make a great sport journalist. I even trust you, Barca News, more than Fabrizio Romano. Well, I appreciate you, my friend. But, I don't want to claim something that I'm not. I'm not a sports journalist, just to clarify. I'm a lawyer by trade, right? I'm just a guy who one day got tired of having to go to 50 different publications and websites and magazines and newspapers to get, my Barca news, a little, one article from here, another article from there, and news about this here. And instead, I wanted to create a one-stop shop where instead of having to read 10 different publications to get your full news, you can just come here, watch one video, get all the news that you need, and you out. That's all. That's all I am. I'm not a journalist. I'm just a guy with a camera and a mic. But I appreciate you, my friend. And Chosen says, learning Spanish and didn't know pathetic is patetico. Thought you just made up a name for them. Yeah, patetico is pathetic. But anyways, I don't want to keep babbling on. Let's get back to the news. But first, I'm going to take a sip of my wine. That's the stuff. Like I said, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. So I need this wine to keep me up, but then crash so I can sleep. I'm going to go to sleep. I might miss the 9 p.m. matches. I think it's Mexico and Czech Republic, right? And then Korea, or maybe I got it backwards. I've seen so many matches in the World Cup. I no longer know who's playing who's playing for whom. Like, nothing. Like, if you ask me, I'll be like, yeah, bro, that Tanzania versus Mongolia game was amazing. And you're like, Mo, neither Tanzania nor Mongolia is in the World Cup. And I'll be like, oh, my bad. I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about, because I've seen so many matches. It's all just mushed together. And yeah, I have no idea what's going on. But anyways, let's talk about the next bit of news, because ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona are preparing a new offer for Julian Alvarez after those declarations saying that he wants to leave Atletico Madrid. Of course he does. Who the hell wants to play for that pathetic club that wins a trophy every 15 years? But anyways, let me tell you about the new offer, because as you know, Julián sat down with Cerezo in private, told him, hey, I want to leave. I want to go to Barca. Cerezo said, I got you, bro. Don't worry. We'll make this happen. And after that, Julián, through his agent, sat down with Deco and, of course, reached an agreement to join Barcelona. And once Barcelona knew, hey, Julián has told Atletico he wants to leave. He's told us he wants to join. Barcelona moved ahead and made an offer to Atletico Madrid worth 90 million euros fixed plus 10 million euros variables for a total package of 100 million euros. Now, that offer went completely ignored. It wasn't rejected. It wasn't accepted. Atletico Madrid didn't say we want more or we want less, or no. They just completely ignored it. Why? Because again, they're a small, pathetic club that don't even have the manners or the courtesy of at least rejecting the offer. Like, at least have the decency of rejecting the offer. You don't even have to write a formal letter. Just hit reply and write reject, send, right? But of course, they don't have neither the manners or the courtesy to do something like that. So of course, then Deco and the sporting department in Barcelona started preparing a new offer, right? And there were talks about Barcelona preparing an offer worth 135 million euros fixed, plus 15 million euros in variables, which would bring the total package to 150 million euros, which is what Atletico Madrid was asking for, right? That offer was never sent. Barcelona were only, getting ready to make that offer. And then, of course, the big bombshell dropped. Julián got on the mic and said, I want to leave. The best thing for all parties involved is a transfer, and that he wanted to fulfill his dream. And of course, we all know his dream is to join Barcelona. So that automatically changed things. And all of a sudden, Deco was like, all right, let's hit the brakes on that 150 million euro offer, because now, well, we have the upper hand, right? And that's exactly what I said. I said, Deco, please don't ruin this. You have a huge advantage. The player you're trying to sign just came out and publicly stated that he wants to leave. You know what big of a difference that makes? Anthony Gordon didn't say that, and we still were able to sign him. So imagine when a player does say that. It makes a huge difference, because now Deco can go to Atletico and say, look, here's my offer. Atletico says, denied. I'm like, all right, well, your loss, not mine, because you're the one who has a player that doesn't want to be there. You're the one who has a problem on your hands. Oh, no, he does want to be here. Oh, really? Because he just told the entire world that he doesn't. So I'm willing to take this problem off your hand and in exchange give you a shitload of money. But if you don't want to, well, there you go. F you. You're the one with the problem. I'm the one with the solution, right? This gives Barcelona a huge, huge advantage. So Deco is now recalculating, and he's no longer willing to offer a 150 million euro package. In fact, Barcelona have ruled that out. They've said they're not going to reach the 150 that Atletico Madrid want. So instead, Barcelona are now ready to offer 130. Some sources are saying 120. Knowing Deco, most likely it's going to be 130. But it's 120 to 130. I'm going with 130. With Barcelona no longer wanting to offer 150 because they consider that they have the upper hand in these negotiations, given that Julián has publicly stated that he doesn't want to stay at Atletico Madrid. Again, why would he? It's a trash club. So I'm glad Deco is seeing some reason, even though honestly I wouldn't have even reached the 130. I would have said 90 plus 10. I made that offer. It was my first and final offer. You want me to take this player off your hands or not? No? All right, that's cool. There's other options in the market. You, on the other hand, you're stuck with a player that doesn't want to be there, that doesn't believe in your project, that the fans will crucify every time he steps on the field because he already said he wants to leave. So you tell me, what you want to do? You want me to fix this problem for you, or you want to keep having it? Up to you. That's what I would do as someone who negotiates for a living. I do this on a daily basis. But anyways, at least Deco is not willing to go 150 million euros. Now, if you're asking, okay, Mo, that's cool, but when is this offer going to be made? It's not going to be anytime soon. Why? Because right now, Barcelona are aware that Julián is fully focused on the World Cup and, playing with Argentina, defending their title. So this offer is going to come, but later. Okay. Deco doesn't want to, create a lot of craziness, media, distractions, etc. He knows Julián was focused on the World Cup. They're already very appreciative that he took his attention off the World Cup by making those statements and saying he wants to leave. And the last thing he wants to do is add to those distractions by then start, making that offer. So don't expect this offer to be made tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. This is a long game, okay? So be patient. That offer is coming. And don't worry, I will be here to tell you all about it once it's officially sent. Anyways, Let's get back to the comment section, and then we are going to talk about more news that assures Julián is coming or wants to come to Barcelona. And then the last bit of news, which you want to stick for this, we're going to talk about the secret clause in his contract, in Julian Alvarez's contract, that could make this transfer more, what's the word? Realistic, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I'm tired. I haven't slept in 2 days. All right, where did we leave off? Blah, 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 blah. D-Way says, I thought I was the only one saying the refs for Haiti matches are biased. I saw a couple of comments saying that Haiti was robbed. I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch the match. I was watching a Brazil match versus Scotland because I wanted to see Neymar, get on the pitch. Most likely his last World Cup. So I did not watch the Haiti match. I did see some of the goals because while I was watching the Brazil match, the screen would shrink and then they would show the goal. What a banger by Haiti. The second goal by Haiti, woo, top 10 easily in this group stages. But I didn't watch the match, so I'll take your word for it. If you guys say Haiti was robbed, I believe you. But I didn't see it, so I have no idea what happened. Let's see. Raja says, Mo, welcome home. Do you think we would get Julián? It's looking like it. I don't want to say 100% because nothing in football 100%, right? 2 years ago, we really thought Nico was coming. It all looked like it was, and then boom, it just fell through, right? Which, to be fair, this case is better than Nico's because unlike Nico, Julián has actually come out and say, I want to leave, right? With Nico, Barcelona were constantly like, hey, we need a gesture. We need you to, make a gesture. Show the world that you do want to come to Barca because he had reached an agreement with Barca to join the club. But he wouldn't make it public, and then it all fell through, right? Here, Julián has made it public. So it's already looking better than the Nico deal. But nonetheless, nothing in football is 100%, right? We all thought Messi was going to renew, and he didn't because Laporta was more worried about his money than the club's sporting health, right? So, do I think Julián would come to Barca? I do think it more than before, right? A month ago, you would have asked me, I would have said, fuck no, Julián's not coming. Absolutely not. Now, so if this was the needle, right? Here, it's no way. Here, it's 100% he's coming. I would say I'm somewhere around here, right? This is the half point. No way, 100%, I'm here. 60 to 70%, I want to say that yes. Okay? So I'm leaning towards more likely that he will come than not. But again, nothing in football is guaranteed. For all we know, this whole thing turns out to be a ploy because Julián was negotiating an agreement with, I don't know, someone else. Or he was negotiating a renewal. But I'm leaning towards more yes than no. All right, let's see. Wisdom says Real Madrid signing on scale of shit unnecessary to whatever. Madrid signing. Madrid signings are a clear sign of a club in decay. Because, and I said this before, but I'll say it again. Last summer, a year ago, they spent 200 million euros on 5 signings. They brought in Xabi Alonso. They brought in Trent. They brought in Huijsen. They brought in Álvaro Carreras. And they brought in Mastantuono. A year later, just a year later, they're now spent over 100 million on replacing those same exact 5 signings. They're bringing Mourinho in the place of Xabi Alonso. They're bringing French fries, Dumfries in the place of Trent. They're bringing Konate in the place of Huijsen. They're bringing Cucurella in the place of Carreras. And Bernardo Silva in the place of Mastantuono. So they just blew 300 million euros on what? On older signings than the ones they just made 12 months ago? I'm sorry, but that to me is, and people are celebrating, by the way. Madridistas are, hey, look at Madrid, they're signing players. Barca's only signed one, ha ha ha. You're really celebrating that you have made 5 signings to replace the other 5 signings that you just made 12 months ago. In other words, your club just threw away 300 million euros, and you're happy about that. And you call yourself a Madridista for celebrating that your club just wasted 300 million euros. Not to mention, Mbappe cost them 120 million euros signing bonus. So that's €500 million and absolutely nothing to show for. Congratulations. If that makes Madrid better than us, then please continue to be better than us. Sid says, Mo, we got scammed with Anthony Gordon. His average at best, we think we're getting a decent player, but instead we're getting Gordon Ramsay, the team chef. I hope I'm wrong. He actually plays well. Here's the thing. To try to say that a player is bad before he's even stepped foot at the Camp Nou, that to me is insane. And I've seen these comments a lot. People are like, oh, Anthony Gordon, he hasn't even played. For fuck's sake. He hasn't even played for us. Now, if he plays and at the end of next season, you're like, look, Mo, he sucks. Look at what he did with Barca. All right, sure. But the motherfucker hasn't even played with us, for us. What are we doing? What is wrong with Barca fans? Anyways, Barca Original says, bro, you're right about Brazil. Even the Morocco versus Haiti was tough and enjoyable to watch. Hey, man, it just doesn't inspire anything in me when I watch Brazil. Spooky says, if Gordon goes for 80 million, then Julián is 150. What else? Ryan says, are we linked to any other players? So remember, we did sign Gordon, obviously. We have signed, what's his name? Caicedo. Forgot his first name. The Ecuadorian guy, and we're finalizing the signing of Salinas. So that's 3 signings. Obviously, Julián right now is the priority. Until we sign Julián, there's not probably going to be any other signings. And, of course, Barcelona are playing the long game on the Cancelo signing, right? Barcelona want to bring Cancelo, but they're kind of like waiting out the Saudi club who are asking for 15 mil, which Barcelona what's it called? I forgot what I was going to say. This is how tired I am. Which Barcelona want to sign, but of course they don't want to pay the 15. Let's see. Agüero says, yo, Alejandro Grimaldo's coming to us, bro. Your club is just Interest FC and doesn't make any moves. Bro, we never wanted Grimaldo. We never wanted Cucurella. By the way, Atletico Madrid reached an agreement with Bernardo Silva, someone who offered himself to Barcelona time and time again. Barca said no. Unless someone leaves, we're not interested. Atletico Madrid reached an agreement with him, and Real Madrid stole him away. Then Cucurella offers himself to Barca. Barca say, no, thank you. Unless Balde leaves, we're not interested. Atletico Madrid try to sign Cucurella, and then Madrid steals him away too. Then Grimaldo offers himself to Barcelona time and time again. Barca says, thank you, but we're not interested. Unless Balde leaves, we're not interested. And now Atletico Madrid are looking to sign him. We're Interest FC? Sounds like you're a Scrubs FC, you know, if you want to sign our scrubs, the players that we don't want, go for it, bro. Sign all you want. Barca said no to all these players. And in fact, you had reached agreements with 2 of them, and Madrid stole it away from you. So not only are you Scrubs FC because you're trying to sign the scrubs that Barcelona don't want, but on top of that, you're Dumbass FC because Madrid are taking the players that you're reaching agreements with. And regardless, even if, yes, Barca wanted all these players because, who doesn't want 5 fullbacks on the left side? And what do you have to show for? When's the last time you won a trophy? You just spent like 200-300 million euros on signings for what? 20-something points behind Barca in La Liga? Losing the final of the Copa del Rey to Real Sociedad, bro. That's how big of a joke this club is. Real Sociedad. Can you imagine losing a final to Real Sociedad? Bro, that's next level trash. You guys are next level trash. Champions League losing against Arsenal against Haram Ball? Come on, man. Fine. Sign all the players you want. And what? What do you got to show for? Absolutely nothing. What, you think football's a competition of who signs more? If so, fine. You can win that trophy. We'll win real trophies. But anyways, it's crazy, by the way. It's crazy to be a Atletico Madrid fan and then think you can actually step up to a Barca fan or a Madrid fan or really any club fan. You guys are nothing. Stay in your lane, my friend. Stay in your lane. And in case you're wondering what lane that is, it's a slow guy lane. It's the lane where you're not allowed to go above 25 miles per hour because you might hurt yourself. Anyways, enough roasting this poor guy. He has enough having been a Atletico Madrid fan. Let's talk about the next bit of news. And guess what? I wasn't lying. We're going to be talking about Julian Alvarez. And well, the next bit of news is also about Julian Alvarez because, ladies and gentlemen, more and more and more and more signs keep coming out that when Julian said that the best thing for all parties involved is a transfer because he wants to live his dream, well, there are more and more signs that, well, his dream is Barcelona, right? Because I've seen people like, well, Julian said he wants to live his dream, but we don't know what his dream is. Come on, bro. We all know his dream is Barcelona. He said it a million times. There's interviews of him when he was a kid saying that his dream is that his idol was Messi and that his dream was to play in Barca. We know his dream is to play for Barca. But, by the way, my friend Agüero, even if it wasn't his dream to play Barca, guess what his dream is not? It's not to play for Atletico. Because one thing he said for sure is that he doesn't want to play at Atletico. But he said he wants to live his dream, and some people are now disputing what that dream is. Well, don't worry, because we got more and more evidence that Julian's dream is truly to play in Barca. First of all, like we said, he did sit down with Cerezo and told him that he wanted to leave Barca, that he wanted to leave Atletico and join Barca. That's number one, but you already knew about that. Number two, Julian Alvarez rejected PSG. I told you about this, and well, today, or I think it was yesterday, Fabrizio Romano confirmed it. So, I know a lot of you swear by Fabrizio. So if you didn't believe me when I told you that Julian had rejected PSG, well, believe Fabrizio Romano, who has now confirmed that Julian did indeed reject PSG. And when he rejected them, he said, thank you, but no thank you. I want to go to Barca. Then, number three, Julian rejected Arsenal. Again, I told you about this last week. But in case you didn't believe me, well, Fabrizio Romano just confirmed that as well. That Julian rejected Arsenal and told them, thank you, but no thank you. I want to go to Barca. Number four, Julian has now purchased not one, but two homes in the city of Barcelona. One for him and one for his family. So the question is, if Julian's dream is not to play at Barca, why would he buy a house in Barcelona for himself and another one for his family? Now you might say, well, Mo, maybe he's just buying a home for vacation. After all, Barcelona is a great city. It's on the beach, great weather, great food. Sure, on its own, maybe it's not enough. But once you add it to the fact that he rejected PSG for Barca, that he rejected Arsenal for Barca, as confirmed by Fabrizio Romano on both ends, that he told Atletico that he wants to go to Barca, you add that all that up with the fact that he's bought two houses, and now all of a sudden it's not just, oh, I want a beach house. Now it's like, all right, well, Julian obviously wants Barca, and when he said that his dream was that he wanted to fulfill his dream, it's clear that what he was talking about was to play for Barcelona. And then finally, came the statements of Hernan Castillo. Sorry, Seba Quadrelli. Hernan Castillo is the one who confirmed that Julian has bought 2 houses. Seba Quadrelli. If you don't know who Seba Quadrelli is, reporter, Argentine reporter, very close to Julian and his family. And yesterday he made a statement on his, I think it was on a podcast or maybe on his own channel, I can't remember. But he said, and I quote, that Julian will play for Barcelona, 90% confirmed. And that's, again, coming from a reporter who's a close friend of Julian and Julian's family. So you put all these together. That Julian told Atletico he wants to go to Barca. That he rejected PSG and told them that he wanted to go to Barca. That he rejected Arsenal and told them he wanted to go to Barca. That he has bought 2 houses in Barcelona, and that his close friend Hernan Castillo, who's a journalist, has said that Julian will play in Barca. You add all that up, and well, the result is pretty simple. When Julian said he wanted to fulfill his dream, he was not talking about Real Madrid. He was not talking about PSG. He was not talking about Arsenal. He was talking about the one and only Football Club Barcelona. All right, let's get back to the comment section, and then we are going to talk about that release clause, which I know a lot of you are waiting for that because that's big news. Big news. There's a release clause in Julian's contract that could make his move possible. All right, let's see. Where did we leave off? Eli George says, good to have you back, bro. I went to the World Cup match in San Francisco on Friday. Paraguay versus Turkey was insane, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Not Paraguayan, but definitely almost became one. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's very amazing. Not just because, it's Paraguay or Turkey. It's just the fact that you got to experience the World Cup. See, I did the craziest thing a person can do. I was like, oh, World Cup in the U.S.? All right, let me fly away. While the whole world is trying to come here to watch the World Cup, I'm the one who flew away. But anyways, I'm back. I hope to at least catch one match, maybe go to an event, like, a fan fest, something, just so I can feel the fever. But speaking of that match, by the way, that means you got to witness history. You got to see the Prestiani rule getting applied for the first time in the history of football. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you got to rewind a month or 2 ago. Real Madrid versus Benfica in the Champions League. Vinicius Jr. gets into a verbal altercation with Prestiani. They're both yelling at each other, insulting each other. Prestiani covers his mouth. And Vinicius Jr. runs to the ref and says, Prestiani just racially abused me. An investigation is open. They don't really prove that Prestiani racially abused Vinicius, but nonetheless, they decide to punish him. And then FIFA, in order to combat this, they applied the new rule, which is if you're speaking to your opponent and you cover your mouth, it's an automatic red card. Okay? It's not officially called the Prestiani rule, but that's what it's been dubbed by the media because, of course, it's a result of that incident with Prestiani. I think it's an incredibly stupid rule. And I know I mentioned that in a previous video, but I didn't really expand on it. I didn't present my arguments on why I think it's a stupid rule. For that, I do apologize. I'm a firm believer that if you gonna make a statement, you have to back it up with your own argument, right? You can't just say, this is stupid and done and walk away. You gotta say, this is stupid because A, B, C, D. Or this is not stupid because A, B, C, D. Or this is right because A, B, C, D. Or this is wrong because A, B, C, D, right? You have to back up your conclusions with arguments. You gotta show how you reach that conclusion. And that is what really feeds discourse, right? Civilized discourse. Because if you just say, you're wrong, no, you're right, no, I'm right, no, I'm wrong, no, I'm right, we're just going to go back and forth. All right, I'm wrong, I'm right. But if you present your arguments, then you're going to have an actual discussion. Okay, you think I'm wrong because A, B, C, D. Well, here's the problem with that thought process. Or you think I'm right, you can actually debate. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're gonna agree with me, but that's what leads to discourse. Intelligent, civilized discourse, presenting your arguments and not just your conclusions. So why do I think the Prestiani rule is an incredibly stupid rule? Well, I'm gonna give you two reasons. This is for two reasons. Oh, balloons, let's go. The first reason is gonna be an objective one. Okay. That is the reason you should actually care about. It's an objective reason. The other one is just gonna be me, a subjective one. It's just gonna be me ranting like an old man. You can ignore that. That's just me being an old man and ranting about it. But let's talk about the objective reason and why I think the Prestiani rule is stupid. Because I think it's unjust, not fair, unfair, and harsh. Why? Now, in order to get into why I think this rule is unjust, you have to look at what this rule is trying to prevent, right? What FIFA's did by applying this rule is saying if you cover your mouth and you insult someone or racially abuse them, the cameras might not catch it, the ref might not catch it, so you're going to get away with it. So in order to avoid that all completely, we're just going to ban covering your mouth. And we're going to show you a red card. But here's the thing. Showing a red card to someone just for covering their mouth, it's extremely harsh because we don't know why they're covering their mouth. I mean, it could be just out of habit. I don't know if you guys noticed, but players always cover their mouth when they're on the pitch, whether they're talking to their teammates, their coach, opponents, the ref. They always cover their mouth. Why? Because they don't want the press lip reading what they're saying and then causing a big fuss out of it, right? Because in a 24-hour news cycle world, anything you say as an athlete or as a famous person, it gets dissected a million ways and it gets interpreted a million ways, right? It's like I say, hey, have a good day. All of a sudden, it's headlines. Oh, Mo said, have a good day. What did he really mean by that? Did he actually mean have a good day? Or was he wishing you a bad day? Oh, did you see how his eyebrows moved? The way his eyebrows moved tells me that he actually hates you. And even though he said have a good day, he meant have a bad day, right? That's the world that we live in. So athletes, famous people, they usually don't want their conversation dissected. So you see football players all the time covering their mouth when they're on the pitch. So what if a player covers his mouth just out of habit? You're going to show him a red card for that? Seems a little harsh. Different scenario. What if he does cover his mouth on purpose, but it's not to say something bad or racially insensitive? Maybe it's just because, again, he doesn't want the press dissecting what he's saying. Maybe he just covers his mouth and says, hey, bro, that wasn't a foul. Stop being a crybaby. Just get up and play. You gonna show him a red card for that? Or maybe he does cover his mouth to say something bad, racial or non-racial, right? There's a lot of scenarios here. And to assume that someone covering their mouth is because they're saying something bad and punish him for that, that to me is unfair because you're punishing someone for something they might have or might not have done. And that's a big problem for me as a lawyer, right? This is like me arresting you and throwing you in prison and saying, and you're like, hey, Mo, why'd you throw me in prison? You might have or might have not robbed the bank. And you're like, what? Did I not rob the bank? I don't know. Maybe you did. Maybe you did it. I'm going to throw you in prison either way. You're like, well, do you have evidence? Well, you were hanging out outside of a bank, okay? And robbers, usually before they rob a bank, they hang out outside of the bank because, they gotta case it. They're gonna see where the entrances and exits are, where the cameras are, where the security guards are posted. So since robbers hang out outside of banks before they rob it, and you were hanging out outside of a bank, that means you robbed the bank, so I'm throwing you in prison. And you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, robbers do hang out outside of banks, but also other people do as well. Doesn't mean that they robbed it. I don't care. And this is what we're doing, right? We're saying because some players cover their mouth to say bad stuff, that means any player that covers his bad mouth needs to be punished because they might be or might be not saying bad stuff. And that to me is stupid, right? You should not punish a player for something they might have or might not have done. If a player initiates a tackle, You can't just show him a red card because maybe that tackle is going to hurt someone. No, you wait for the result of that tackle. And if he gets the ball, it's not a foul. If he doesn't get the ball, he gets the player, it is a foul. If he gets some and maybe it's aggressive, he gets a yellow. If it's more aggressive, he gets a red, right? You don't punish someone for just tackling. You punish them for what that tackle results in. So why are we punishing people just for covering their mouth? We should punish them based on what they covered their mouth for, right? Now, you might say, well, Mo, we need to get rid of racism. Sure, 100%. And this is how it's done. If a player racially abuses another and the ref or any of the refs hears it, it could be the assistants, it could be the fourth ref, boom, red card, suspend that player. If the refs don't hear it, then the player who got racially abused should submit a formal complaint. An investigation should be open. And, whichever body is in charge, FIFA, UEFA, La Liga, whatever, they investigate. Maybe they interview other players who were close by and see if they heard anything. Maybe they pull audio, right? There's microphones all over the field. And if they can confirm that, yes, that player did racially abuse another one, suspend them. And if the investigation yields nothing, then nothing happens. Yeah, it sucks. You want people punished. But if you can't prove someone did something wrong, how can you punish them? It's not how the law works. It's not how rules work. That's not how law should work. That's not how rules should work. If you can prove someone did something bad, by all means, punish them. If you can't, you cannot punish them. So this whole cover your mouth, and it's like, oh, automatic red. What the fuck are we doing? That to me is a stupid rule, objectively speaking. Subjectively speaking, and this is me like ranting like an old man, and again, you can ignore this part. Again, what are we doing? See, and this is where the old man comes in. When I was growing up, like in my day, when I played sports, if someone insulted you, you insult them back, and that's it. You're stupid. No, you're stupid. Fuck you. No, fuck you. And that's it. We'll go back to playing. And then at the end of the match, we're like, hey, bro, I'm sorry I insulted you. It was the heat of the moment. Don't worry about it. Done. And everybody went home happy. This whole like, oh, he insults me, so I cry like a little bitch to the ref. Like, what the fuck are we doing? We're like raising a generation of soft-ass motherfuckers made of glass. And yes, Vinicius Jr., I'm looking at you. It's like, what are we doing here? Also, the best way to rout racism? Take the power away from it. When someone insults you, whether it be racial slur or non-racial slur, they're mad at you. They're mad. They think you did them wrong. If you're an athlete, you're scoring goals against my team, so fuck you. You're making it bad for me. So I want revenge. I'm mad at you. I want revenge. So I want you to be mad as well. How am I going to do that? I'm going to insult you, whether it be racially abuse you or just insult you, a regular insult, right? If you ignore that person, you just took the power out of their words. They were trying to get a reaction out of you, and you didn't react. Guess what? Now their insults are just empty words. They're just sounds traveling through the air. You won. Fuck that guy. If he's mad, let him be mad. Why give him the satisfaction of ruining your own day? Right? Do you guys remember that Dani Alves incident? He was about to take a corner kick and someone threw a banana at him. What did he do? He grabbed the banana, peeled it, took a bite, took the corner kick. That was it. The best way to end it. That guy who threw the banana was mad at Dani Alves and wanted Dani Alves to be mad too. And he would have loved if Dani Alves had turned around and been like, fuck you. But instead, Dani Alves grabbed the banana, took a bite, everybody laughed, and done. And that guy, he got to stay mad. He didn't get a reaction out of Dani Alves. So this is more of a advice. Be the Dani Alves. Now when it comes to sexual encounters. When it comes to like other people insulting you, be more like Dani Alves. Be less like Vinicius Jr. Now, I'm not saying that FIFA should ignore racism. Obviously not. They should punish it, whether it's a fan or a player or a coach. But what are we doing with the whole, you cover your mouth, it's a red card? What the fuck are we doing? Anyways, Sorry, I really got carried away. Let's do the last bit of news. I know a lot of you are probably waiting for this last bit of news, but let's talk about the clause in Julian Alvarez's contract that could make his arrival much easier than initially anticipated. Now, Julian Alvarez, as you know by now, because Atletico Madrid have mentioned it over and over again, has a release clause worth 500 million euros. And every time there's been mention about Barcelona wanting to sign Julian, they've said, well, he has a 500 million euro release clause. If they want to sign him, let them pay the 500 million and he's all yours, which obviously neither Barca nor any club in their right mind are going to pay 500 million euros, not for Julian, not for any player, right? But back in May, Jose Álvarez, a reporter on the Chiringuito, mentioned something that went kind of unnoticed, under the radar. A lot of people they shrug it off as like, just a rumor, right? But now, with the new revelation that Ben Jacobs has made, now all of a sudden, it doesn't seem like it's a rumor. Because now we're talking about two different reporters, completely independent of each other, saying the same thing. Now, what did Jose Alvarez say back in May on the Chiringuito program, the TV show? He said that Julián had an exception clause in his contract that allowed him to join a Champions League club like Barca, like Madrid, for less than his release clause, which is 500 million euros. Now, when Jose Alvarez was asked, how much is this release clause? He said, I don't know, but I think it's something around 120 million euros. That's what Jose Alvarez said back in May on the El Chiringuito program. Now, back when he said it, it didn't really make the headlines because it just seemed like a too good to be true rumor, right? But now it doesn't look like it's just another rumor, because now Ben Jacobs, another sports journalist, has come out and said something very similar. And what Ben Jacobs has said is that Julian Alvarez does have an exception clause in his contract that would allow him to join a Champions League club for less than the 500 million euro release clause. Right? So if it's like Barca or Madrid, they pay less. Any other club, they have to pay the 500. Now, how much is this exception clause? According to Ben Jacobs, he says it's 130 million euros. However, this clause does stipulate that whichever Champions League club that activates it has to pay the taxes on it as well, on the transfer, which would bring the cost to a total of 150 million euros. So, now you have two different reporters, completely independent of each other, saying that Julián has an exception clause that Barcelona could activate for less than the 500 million euros, which of course makes the signing a lot more plausible and explains why Deco is preparing a 130 million euro offer, which I told you about a few moments ago. Now, I cannot tell you for certain whether Jose Alvarez and Ben Jacobs are right, because as we know, contracts are confidential. And usually there's a lot of things we don't know about contracts. And even if we did know about contracts, a lot of times their interpretation could be different by different people, right? And this is why contract lawyers exist, because you might read the same sentence as I do, and we can both interpret it different ways. That's when lawyers get involved, courts get involved, and then it's up to a court to decide which interpretation is the correct one, right? I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I'm saying I cannot assure you 100% that this clause does exist. or if it's being interpreted the correct way, if it does exist. But we do have two different reporters saying that Julian has an exception clause. Now, this is not a first time this happened. A lot of athletes have this. For example, Haaland has a Barca, Madrid, and Atletico Madrid clause that allows him to join any of these three clubs for less than what his normal release clause is. Or even if I don't even know if he has a release clause, but I do know he has a Barca, Madrid, Atletico Madrid clause. Right, a lot of athletes do this. Right, they have a release clause, and then they have a different one if a certain clubs come for him. Right, or in cases of other leagues, they might not have a release clause at all, but they do have a release clause just for specific clubs because only in La Liga our release clause is mandated. Other clubs, other leagues, they're not mandated. It's just up to the player and the club to negotiate it. So, if this is true, if this clause does exist, then of course this is another plus in Barcelona's column because they can just activate that clause, which obviously it's a lot more affordable than 500 million. And then be done with it. So that's the news. You guys let me know what you think. And with that, that wraps up our podcast, Julian Alvarez edition. Because yes, that's all we talked about was Julian Alvarez. Let's do a few more comments, starting with let's fucking go! Steven, no, not Stevens. Sevens Requiem. Thank you so much, my friend, for the donation. I love that clippy picture. For those of you who are younger, back in the day when you used Microsoft Word, that picture, clippy, it's a paper clip, would pop up and said, "How can I help you?" And you would kind of like ask it questions about how to do things, and it would answer you. Obviously, it's not as sophisticated as AI, where you can just ask it whatever and answer you whatever. But it would kind of guide you on how to use Microsoft Word and, well, Microsoft Office, I think. I think PowerPoint, you could also activate it. But anyways, that's Clippy for us older people. I miss Clippy. But anyways, Sevens Requiem says, by the way, Mo, I went to see both of Spain's games here in Atlanta. Had excellent seats close to the field and didn't have to spend a fortune. Wow. How? Please teach me your tricks, Saya. Because I need to know. You know, as you know, that the World Cup started when I was in Argentina. So today's my first day back. So I pretty much missed the entire first two rounds of the group stages. But I still have the third round, which is already underway. I have, of course, round of 32, 16, go to finals, semifinals, final. Yeah, right. Like I'm going to make it to the final. But if you want to teach me your tricks, please do so, my friend. I would truly, truly appreciate it. The same way I appreciate your donation. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. Bakary says, "Hi, Mo. I can see a lot of fans underrate Julián, but Mo can assure you that if Barca sign Julián with Yamal on the flank, he's going to be the best." I hope so, my friend, especially because Barcelona are obviously looking to spend a lot of money. So I truly, truly hope so. Kevin says, "Mo, I'm not going to lie. I was one of the people who was flaming Jota Jordi yesterday." Let's see what else. What else? I am Pacey. Hello, Pacey. Says, "Would you trade Araujo with Van de Ven?" I feel like they are very similar profiles. So I would say no. And I know it's crazy because I've been wanting Araujo out for a while. But if you have two players with the same profile, but one, Araujo, who has more experience, who has been at Barca for a lot longer, who's a captain, who's a leader, then obviously might as well keep that, right? I don't know. Am I crazy? Guys, let me know. Let me know. Zen X Boy says, "For Barca, I think we can't get as much transfer budget as this year for next 2 years." I mean, not necessarily, because here's the thing. The Camp Nou made us a lot of money this past season. It's going to make us more next season when it's fully open, right? So we're actually going to make more money. So that's not necessarily true. Plus, if we sign even more sponsorship, if we sell more merchandise, you know, then you're talking about more and more money. Dima says after this deal done, we need to sell Kunde, Balde, and Araujo, reset a new defense. The problem is it's not just we sell them and that's it. It's okay, you sell them, but who are you going to replace them with? Right? You need a replacement lined up before you sell a player. Otherwise, you sell them and then you're like, oh shit, I can't sign anyone. And they're like, oh wait, starting the season with no players. What do we do now? Rebel Pilot says Josue Caicedo. Thank you. Josue Caicedo is Barcelona's second signing. And what's his name? Salinas should be the third. Edward says, what was the television coverage like in Argentina? Four quarters with commercial. FIFA is estimated to make 4.9 billion. Incredible. Here's the crazy thing. Where I was staying, the apartment didn't have a TV. So I've literally been watching Champions League, World Cup matches on my laptop. Today was the first time I got to watch a World Cup match on my TV. So I definitely need to get into the World Cup fever. Let's see. Let's do one last comment, I mean. Las Cargo says, whatever the figure is, release clause need to be paid in cash, 130 million in cash. I don't think Barca can afford it. Again, usually cash deals are never cash deals. A lot of mostly payment. And if the club does request, okay, upfront, no payment plan, usually clubs will take out a loan for that amount, pay the other club in cash, and then they pay back the loan in payment plans. That's how it usually works. But anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, an hour and 15 minutes. Holy moly. Can you tell I'm very happy to be back and to be doing this podcast? Because I just talked you guys' ear off. But thank you. Thank you for putting up with my blabbering for over an hour and 15 minutes. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. I'm going to go watch one more match and then go to sleep. And as always, Visca Barça.